A few days ago, we released a video discussing the theoretical potential low-end X3D Ryzen CPUs, which would make 3D cache layouts more affordable. We compared them to mid-range options like the Ryzen 5 5600X and Ryzen 5 3600. What we didn't know at the time is that AMD is indeed planning to release a more affordable Ryzen with 3D cache, although not as low-end as we speculated, Ryzen 5 5500X 3D. This CPU will feature 6 cores, 12 threads, 96 MB of L3 cache and a core frequency of 4 GHz. Essentially, it's a 5600X 3D, but with significantly reduced clock speeds. Fortunately, we can emulate this new 5500X 3D by disabling 2 cores and slightly limiting the clock speed of a Ryzen 7 5700X 3D, which we happen to have access to. This emulated 5500X 3D is identical to the real thing, with no differences in cache, core layout or any other specs. In theory, it should perform exactly like the upcoming 5500X 3D. Today we are testing it against the Ryzen 5 5600X using the benchmarks from our previous video. The 5600X is basically the same chip, but without the 3D cache and with a much higher core frequency. In our test, it was set to 4.5 GHz, but the 4.6 is usually easily achievable as well. All the test results were measured separately from the recording session. AMD Relive recording has a significant performance impact in these CPU tests, but the recordings are still useful for demonstrating overall system behavior during the test run. Both CPUs were tested on CL15, 16, 16, 36, 37, 33 DDR4 RAM, and the GPU in the testing rig is an RX 7800 XT. Hello and welcome back to Hardware Lab. This very old game, which primarily measures single-thread performance, clearly favors the higher clock speed of the 5600X. This is likely the case for many games from that era. Modern but technologically simple Counter-Strike 2 based on the less outdated API turns out to be quite cache sensitive. Despite the lower single-thread clocks and performance, 5500X 3D is much faster here. Riftbreaker's stupidly demanding CPU benchmark performs quite poor on any system, but noticeably better on the 5500X 3D. The Callisto Protocol is a pretty bad game in terms of multi-threading usage. However, it boosts significantly from the usage of 3D cache buffer, and 5600X's higher frequency can't outweigh that. Unfortunately, we ended up being extremely GPU limited in Cyberpunk 2077 on the 5500X 3D side, so the difference you see here between the chips is nowhere near the advantage that 5500X 3D really has. The 5600X test was done prior to this video for the previous one, so we had no option to change the settings. The advantage of 5500X 3D is still clear though. In Starfield, 5500X 3D shows its full advantage that's achievable in modern game. It is extremely fast here and way faster than its higher clocks, lower cache counterpart. We don't yet know how the 5500X 3D will be priced, or how limited its availability might be, but it certainly makes sense as a solid upgrade for an AM4 system. In most cases, it's a significantly better upgrade than the well-known and loved 5600X. If you enjoyed this test, consider subscribing, hitting the like button, and checking out more of our benchmarks. And as always, stay up to date with HL.